Hi, my name is Rick, and I hope you'll join me and my wife on a June trip to Alaska. We'll get started in a minute, but some explanation about the photos is necessary. Tourists who are close to the camera in the photos may have their faces blurred. This was done for privacy reasons. Let's start the trip. This is a cruise tour. 4 days were on land before the 7-day sea cruise. If you've seen this map before, it means you took a trip to the Canadian Rockies with us. 2 things for newcomers. First, we toured the Canadian Rockies and, since we were already so far from home, we decided to see Alaska. The first tour ended in Calgary, so we flew to Fairbanks a day early for the cruise tour. Second, one person with a cold started the Canadian Rockies tour, and by the end, everyone on the tour had it. We stayed at the Fairbanks Princess Riverside Lodge. The land portion of the trip is shown here. We arrived a day early, so we spent 2 nights in Fairbanks, 2 nights in the Denali Princess Wilderness Lodge, and 1 night at the Mount McKinley Princess Wilderness Lodge. After that, we boarded the cruise ship. Day 1. The Princess Tour didn't start until 6 p.m., so we had all day to visit Fairbanks. This large sign welcomed us to downtown Fairbanks. Golden Heart Plaza, near the Chenna River Walk, is the center of downtown. The Unknown First Family sculpture portrays the family of all mankind, the family of Fairbanks, and the nuclear family. The business hub of downtown is farther down the street. The bus stop and the visitor center are in the log cabin to the left. Mowable roofs are a big thing north of the lower 48. 2 blocks over, you will find the shopping district. We did find the northernmost southern barbecue. If Guy Fieri put up a banner, it must be good. The service and the food were super. Right on, Guy. What is the destination that all travelers won't miss? Give up? It's the walk-in clinic. Yep, we were still a little under the weather. Day 2. The first excursion was a trip to Steamboat Landing and a boat ride on the Chenna River. Both were lots of fun. Steamboat Landing is a typical tourist trap. The merchandise inside was what you would expect. Lots of clothes and souvenirs of all descriptions. There were also some nice specialty stores. A walk-in freezer beckoned visitors to go inside and experience an Alaskan winter night. It was definitely cold. Brrr. We could tell that 10 minutes in that cold would turn you into a popsicle. The Discovery 3 is a replica of a sternwheeler riverboat. The riverboat had both indoor and outdoor seating. The guide gave an informative and humorous presentation. Once the trip got started, an Alaskan bush pilot shared stories of village life and explained the vital role planes have in remote Alaska. We watched him take off and land right next to the boat. The plane was beginning its takeoff run. When you were a kid, did you ever have one of those booklets that showed a movie when you flipped the pages quickly? Well, that's what's coming up. There are 5 pictures put together to make a 3-second movie of the takeoff. This is the first picture, and you can see where the pilot starts out. Here's the movie. Wow, that was quick. Let's see it again. What goes up must come down, right? So the pilot's going to land and come close to our boat. It was exciting to see how the plane took off and landed. It didn't drag at all, it just lifted and landed easily. Now he's coming in for the landing. Just like the takeoff, this is the first photo of the movie and where to look. Would you like to see that again? Here he comes. The next stop was the Trailbreaker Kennels and Dog Sled Team training facility. It was started by Susan Butcher, who won the Iditarod dog race in Alaska 4 times. She passed away in 2006, but her husband and daughters have continued the business. Her daughters are holding up 4 very cute and very wiggly puppies. The puppies are learning how to jump over a small log, but they'll go over larger logs in the future. Caribou are just one of the animals in wild Alaska. We learned that there is one special set of caribou, and their names are Dasher, Prancer, Donner, and, well, you know who I mean. We call them reindeer. Did you know that reindeer are really caribou? Our next stop was an Athabascan Indian village. This is the fishing area. The native Alaskan guide explained the different ways the Indians dried their fish to preserve them. He's pointing to an automated fishing net. The water spins the nets, which trap the fish and drops them into the basket. While someone has to attend it, the process is much faster than a hook with a worm on it. The Chena River doesn't have outstanding beauty, but it's a perfect place to rest, put your feet up, and feel the stress of the city fade away. Once we returned to Steamboat Landing, we had a family-style lunch at the Discovery Dining Hall. The food was plentiful and delicious. We're enjoying the Alaskan mountains on our way to our next hotel. The Denali Princess Wilderness Lodge would be our home for the next 2 nights. The back patio had great views of the mountains above us. A model of a section of Denali Park was in the lobby. Tomorrow, we're going on a half-a-day tour, the red line on the model. Day 3. We came up on several moose on the trip into Denali Park, and this is my best photo. There were many other smaller animals, but nothing else as big as this moose. We stopped for a rest stop and had a good chance to see some Dall sheep up on the mountain. It's a good thing I had my telephoto lens. What is the thing with grassy roofs? Even the restroom has to be mowed. I'm glad I don't have to get the mower up there. Once the excursion was over, it was lunchtime. We decided to go to a local store instead of the lodge's restaurant. The store had 2 pricing structures, one for locals. We didn't get that one. Several signs on the store indicated that dog sledders are regular customers. This view off the hotel patio of the Nenana River and the mountains was gorgeous. The Nenana River flows below the patio. Surrounded by the mountains and forests, it's a beautiful shade of gray. Rivers that receive the majority of their water from glacial runoff are filled with silt-sized particles, making the water appear cloudy. This is sometimes known as glacial milk. A pleasant visitor dropped by while we had appetizers on the patio. It was only 5 days before the longest day of the year, and tonight just worked out to be a good time and place to see the midnight sun. As I got out of bed at midnight, my wife expressed her opinion that I had lost my senses and I'd be the only one out taking photos. Oh, how wrong she was. There were about 30 people outside. The sun is turning mountain tops to the east a glowing red. Looking at the sunset, the clouds turned a nice orange in the dip between the mountains. These photos are not time exposures. The sun is sinking fast behind the mountains. A climb up to a higher ground revealed the midnight sunset in all its glory. What an experience. Day 4. We left the Denali Lodge and headed to our next hotel. The bus stopped at a couple of viewpoints so we could enjoy the valley and mountain views. There were other photographers who wandered into the brush just like I did. More snow on the mountains reminded us that even though the temperatures would climb into the upper 60s and it was mid-June, it was also Alaska and the snow doesn't give up easily. And in the middle of all these large trees in the forest, a little flowering beauty finds a way to make its presence known. We've arrived at the Mount McKinley Princess Lodge for one night. We haven't seen Mount Denali yet, so this is our last chance. Guest rooms are typically in buildings like this. It's not a flashy building, and the background only highlights this fact. The sign reads, "Is Denali bigger than Everest?" Yes. The base of Mount Everest is almost 14,000 feet above sea level. By comparison, the base of Denali is only at 1,000 feet above sea level. Even with a summit height of over 29,000 feet, if you cut Everest at the base and placed it side by side with Denali, Alaska's mountain would be roughly 3,000 feet taller than Everest. Our fellow passengers are joining us for a beautiful sunset, and we're all looking at the mountains far in the distance. In the middle of the photo, there's a gap in the far mountains, and that's where Mount Denali is located. Can you see it? Neither could we. We changed our position to see a little closer to the ground. There's a tiny speck of something to see. It's easier to see in the enlargement at the top. While we were watching, the clouds lifted a little and we could see a tiny bit of Mount Denali. Mount Denali is so tall and so big that it creates its own weather. Most of the time, that weather is clouds. That's why there's the 30% Club. There's no information about how the 30% was determined, but no one at the lodge that night became a member. But many people don't see any of the mountains, so we felt fortunate to see what little we did. Day 5. We are on our way to historic Talkeetna, where we'll board the direct-to-the-wilderness train to head south through Anchorage and onto the port of Whittier. The buses dropped us off at the station. The train arrived and we had to wait for the northbound passengers to exit and get on the buses for their land trip. Now we are at the station at historic Talkeetna. The town might be historic, but the station, split logs for seating and porta potties, was less than anyone expected. It was disappointing, but it makes a good story. We are riding down towards the port. The view to the west is the other side of the Knik Arm, which runs off of Cook Inlet. The mountains, the trees, and the ominous clouds make a striking photo. On the eastern side of the train was a road. The road and the railroad share the Anton Anderson Memorial Tunnel. The tunnel is 2.5 miles long and has one traffic lane and one track. Vehicle traffic alternates on the single lane, and the road cannot be used whenever a train is in the tunnel. Trains have very limited access to it. The clouds are more ominous now that they are right on top of the mountains. It will rain before we reach Whittier. On the right side of the photo, you can see the port of Whittier, which was just as disappointing as the station at Talkeetna. Which end of our train ride looks rougher? The answer is Whittier. The path was rugs thrown over the tracks, the roadbed, and other assorted bumps and ruts. Our sea cruise is mapped out here. We start at Whittier and generally head south. Day 6. The sea beckons us and we're all happy to be on board. Our destination today is Hubbard Glacier. We begin the day with a lush green forest on a mountain with waterfalls and a smattering of snow and clouds at the top. That would soon change. As the day went on, the sky cleared, but there was a solid mass of clouds sitting on the ground. The tops of the clouds formed a straight line from one side of the photo to the other. Some smaller mountains can be seen through the clouds. It's easy to see the taller mountains above the clouds. We entered Disappointment Bay on our way to Hubbard Glacier. The bay was named by an explorer who thought he'd found the Northwest Passage, except he didn't. It is strange to see the mountain on the left, all green with thriving vegetation, with ice floes in front of it and a glacier behind it. Nature adapts herself to the lot she's been given. Don't you think that's a happy sea lion getting a sunbath on a chunk of ice? These sea lions might be happier because they are a couple of friends playing around. We arrive at Turner Glacier first. It's the brown area that appears to be a muddy mess. But just look at those stately mountains. This is our first view of Hubbard Glacier. Although it's hard to see here, the glacier has a blue face that is absolutely breathtaking. We've gotten closer to the glacier, so the view has improved. How tall is the glacier? I don't know exactly, but it's at least as tall as the bridge on the ship, and that is 9 stories above the water's surface. This photo is actually 2 photos combined to show the full width of the glacier. Hubbard Glacier is one of the few glaciers that is growing instead of shrinking. These photos are of the same area on the glacier as its calving. Calving occurs when ice splits off the front of a glacier. After a hard day at sea, we all deserved a champagne fountain. Day 7. The smaller islands in Glacier Bay are occupied mostly by stellar sea lions and black-legged kittiwake birds. You can see how cloudy and gray it was by looking at the mountains in the background. Kittiwakes are preyed upon by bald eagles, but they are not defenseless. The birds live in colonies, and the entire colony acting as one often defeats the eagles. Look at the clouds on top of this mountain. The weather was getting worse. Can you see the little brown spot on the shoreline in the center of the photo? Zoom in with the camera and see the brown bear we picked up as a mascot for the ship. The captain slowed the ship to a crawl as we watched this bear for almost an hour. Skagway was our first port of call. We're taking a trip to the Yukon Suspension Bridge in Canada, but first we have to cross the Captain William Moore Bridge. This bridge crosses a fault line. To keep the bridge from being torn apart from earthquakes or other earth movements, it is only anchored at one end. The clouds are hanging just over the road, so you can see the weather we're having. We stopped by this picturesque pond and hilltop near the border where we crossed over into Canada. We're almost in the clouds now. We're here at the bridge. The photo was taken on the visitor center side of the canyon, looking towards the lookout on the other side. Take a look at the Touchai River. The weather has been overcast with some rain, and you can see the river is rough and flowing fast. This is my artistic photo looking through the trees in the same direction. The bridge is 57 feet above the river. That's high, but not high enough to make us dizzy. Turn around and there is a better sense that the Touchai River Canyon is indeed a canyon. We're looking back at the bridge and the cliffside restaurant. The bridge doesn't go anywhere. It's purely a tourist attraction. But the views are great, and the road to and from Skagway was beautiful. The road looked very different, both coming and going. The visitor center is behind these tourists. This is something U.S. citizens don't see too often, a road sign welcoming them back into our own country. Of course, everyone had to get a picture. It was lunchtime and we were headed to, what else in Alaska, a salmon bake. The location was the surprise. Liarsville. Have you ever heard of this town? It's not a real town now, but a scaled-down recreation of the real Liarsville. The town's name comes from all the tall tales the journalists who stayed here during the Klondike gold rush of the 1890s sent back east. Liarsville calls itself an old-time trail camp, complete with a bordello. One of the ladies came on the bus to guide us to the salmon bake. I don't have a photo of lunch, but there were picnic tables under shelters and a huge stone fireplace where the salmon was cooked over an open fire. You can stop here to take your official Liarsville photo. Of course, every town needs some music, and a saloon with some good food. One look at this town made us glad we didn't live here back in the 1890s. The current saloon is a lot more welcoming than this one. Nothing to say here, just look at and read the photo. After our excursion, we had some time to walk around and got a good photo of some roses, the Skagway Harbor, and another snowy mountain. The clouds are still low on the mountaintops. It was the longest day of the year, but we didn't stay up because we had some good midnight sun photos from a few days ago. Day 9. Today we're in Juneau. The next 3 pictures are a couple of the mountainsides with waterfalls that we passed cruising into port. This falls looks small compared to the entire mountain, and it's another mountain topped with clouds. This is a close-up of the falls from the last photo. We were under the weather and decided to skip the morning tour of Mendenhall Glacier, but just because we missed it doesn't mean that you have to. Full disclosure, I'm cheating and using photos from the internet here. This is the view from the Visitor Center. Mendenhall Glacier is known for ice caves like this one. The time span of 1894 to 2008 is 114 years. That's a long time, but the glacier has receded a long way. I did venture out for some medicine and got a photo of the port. Some tourist shops were right on the pier. Downtown Juneau is nestled under several mountains. This one had a long stretch of water running down its side. At this point, do you think we should call this a very steep stream or an actual waterfall? We said goodbye to Juneau, looking at our wake out the window at the back of the ship. Day 10. Ketchikan was one of our most exciting days. We took the Lighthouse Totems and Eagles excursion boat tour out of Ward Cove, and it was great. We passed by the Totem Bight State Park. It has Ketchikan's tallest totem pole. The poles aren't from any single clan or tribe, but are mostly abandoned poles from the area. Some are reproductions of actual totems. Here are a few more poles. This building is a replica of a typical clan house. The Guard Island Lighthouse was built in 1904 and automated in 1969. This breakwater was covered with birds that looked like the black-footed kittiwakes we saw in Glacier Bay. Look at the mountains in the background. Our day had decent weather, but the clouds and fog were in the area. Several private islands dot the area. This island is ready for visitors and a party. Solitude. That's what this island and house say to me. The scenery only enhances that impression. Look at the bottom of the picture, just above the lowest green branch. An eagle used all those sticks to make a nest. There were some much bigger nests in the area, but this was the best photo. and it's still pretty big. Here come the eagles. Look how regal this fellow appears at the top of the tree. Doesn't a craggy dead tree look like a perfect perch for such a strong predator? This is a threefer. There's the eagle standing on the tree, the eagle flying away from the tree, and a close-up of him flying. I know there are better photos around, but there's something special when you've taken the photo yourself. It's hard to get eagles to pose, so this is a group of only 2. The photo in the upper right corner is a close-up of the larger eagle. Now we are changing gears from the wilderness to the city of Ketchikan. This is one of the parts of downtown that caters to tourists. Look at the snow that's still on the mountain in the background, and remember, it is June 22nd, and the clouds are on the mountain. This sign keeps track of the rainfall in Ketchikan. The rainfall record is just over 202 inches in 1949. The fish on the right side near the top shows that last year, 2016, the rain totaled 174 inches. The rock sculpture is adjacent to the pier. It is made up of 7 figures. Chief Johnson stands on top as he welcomes the logger, the fisherman, the miner, the bush pilot, the Tlingit drummer, and the pioneer woman. They were all important parts of Ketchikan history. More tourist shops are right off the dock. Ketchikan is a tourist town. Virtually everything closes for the winter when the cruise season ends. Day 11. We were at sea and didn't take any photos. Day 12. Vancouver was at the end of our cruise. We took a short flight to Seattle and spent the night. This was the view from our motel. I'd always heard that Mount Rainier looks like it's hovering over Seattle, and this photo confirms it. Day 13. We got this view of the morning sun creating an orange glow on the mountain. A quick shuttle ride to the airport, and we were on our way home. As we were taking off, Mount Rainier was right in my window, so I took a few photos. The airline magazine on the plane showed a similar photo and pointed out the other mountains that are peeking up through the clouds. Even though we were somewhat under the weather and there were too many cloudy days, it was a great trip. I hope you enjoyed it too. The video is over, but there is a repeat of one of the eagles with a poem that I learned in school. With apologies to Alfred Lord Tennyson. The eagle, he clasps the branch with crooked hands, close to the sun in lonely lands, ringed with the azure world, he stands. The wrinkled bay beneath him crawls, he watches from his treetop halls, and like a thunderbolt he falls.